All right, welcome everybody. If you are not speaking, we ask that you stay on mute. I do hear some chirping in the background. I'm not sure who that is. Thank you. So welcome everybody. This is part 2 of the network summer series called None of This Was on My Vision Board, So Now What? Shifting and Adapting to 2020. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Cheryl Sanchez. I am the founder of the Networks organization and the author of The Journey of Success, Even When Success is Just Getting Out of Bed. The Networks is a network of leaders, forward thinkers, entrepreneurs, and change makers who have joined together to realize success. If you're interested in learning more about me, our members, or the Networks, you can visit our website at thenetworks.org or find us on social media. We created this series because many of us started this year at vision board or goal setting events when things started to go haywire. We thought none of this was on our vision board. And then we thought, so now what do we do? We figured many others were thinking the same thing and decided to come together to create this series. So tonight we have 3 great speakers, Dr. Kimberley Khodakhah, Kathleen Macias-Torres, and Joel Salomon. Kim is a veterinarian with 25 years of experience in small animal medicine and surgery. She has an entrepreneurial spirit and she combines her veterinary experience with a deep desire to help others. She developed, financed, and directs an international veterinary spay-neuter program in Fiji, and she works with the Wolf Conservation Center in Westchester. As an avid learner, and while seeking opportunities to help, Dr. Khodakhah qualified as a certified professional coach and founded Vetopia, Inc. She works diligently with members of the veterinary field to combat mental health issues prevalent in the industry through mentoring and creating hands-on programs. And she also works outside of the veterinary industry, speaking to groups and helping others like us tonight. Kim?
All right, just got to get that mute off. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Cheryl. I'm just going to capture the screen here, if I may. And there we go. So welcome everybody to the summer series, and thank you to Cheryl and the Networks for inviting me to speak. It's a real honor. I think COVID-19 and the year 2020 so far has been more than any of us could ever have imagined, and really left us all in the spin, and it's very atypical from what we're used to. So sharing ideas, how everyone's dealing, and networking like this is absolutely fantastic. So when it became clear that I needed to isolate myself, wear masks, I mean, at that time I was wiping everything down as well. I kind of decided, well, you know, I could kick and scream and complain about what I can't do and feel frustrated and angry, or I could try to make most of the situation and see if I could create opportunities that would be helpful. And so I chose to do the latter for the most of the time. I'm not perfect, but that's where my talk kind of starts. I, like everybody else, probably started with decluttering the house, and I did a little painting, but then I actually decided I wanted to start a vegetable garden. And so the topic of my talk today is what growing a vegetable garden taught me about life. As Cheryl said, my name is Kimberley Khodakhah. I'm a veterinarian, veterinary mentor, wellness coach, and a veterinary outreach coordinator. I don't know where everybody on the chat or the listening to this is from. If you would like to, it would be kind of nice to get to know you too. Maybe putting the state or town that you're listening from and your interest or profession and careers, just as a way of networking. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about COVID, talk about the 5 lessons that I wanted to emphasize here. I actually came up with 12. Explain how I've incorporated that in my experience, and then talk with you guys about how you might be able to implement the lessons. So COVID is, or this time in 2020 with COVID, with all these things going on, is definitely an unprecedented time. And many of us, especially when things were closed down, felt isolated. The change in how the structure, if you weren't a designated worker, there was a lack of routine or plan. This often would lead to a sense of frustration, or in some other cases, fear and anxiety. And again, if you weren't a essential worker, a lot of people have come up with some financial constraints and the situation that we're finding ourselves in. Definitely was not on anyone's vision board, didn't want to see it. So, like I said, I early in the experience, or early in the spring, decided that I decluttered and cleaned all I wanted to, or all I cared to do, and I was going to make a vegetable garden. And the first lesson really is a bit obvious in that there's a time to sow and there's a time to harvest. With spring being there, the sun's coming out, the days are warming a little bit, the ground is thawing, and this is, historically a time where nature and life returns and becomes resilient again. And so there are conditions that foster growing of vegetables, as do the conditions of fall, when the days are getting shorter, the evenings getting cooler. That's the time to harvest, as things are going to start to go into quietness or die in the case of many vegetables. So conditions do definitely impact what one is able to do and how one should look on life. So once I decided to have a garden, I kind of furiously went into, well, what am I going to do? And I was so curious as to what the potential of what I could grow was. I explored the variety of things, the amount of space it would take, and what if I did this, or what if I did that? And so Google was a great help. That was really my main source. But selecting not only what vegetables, but, am I going to grow grape tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, beefsteak tomatoes? I did a lot of homework, and I actually, this process of being curious and exploring was actually very enlightening, not from just the educational point of view, but it was to my sense of being and to my mental state. So I learned about compost and a variety of different things. And so the second lesson of, just embracing curiosity and exploring and dreaming what if. So for those of you who know anything about gardening, I went to Walmart and I bought my 2 trays of plant little soil balls, and I got a variety of different seeds from the vegetables I wanted to do, some that I selected and some it was just because that's what was in the shop, and I planted all my seeds. And so when you go from seeds to sprouts, it's germinating, and you know, it was amazing to see in 3 to 7 days, I had little green things budding up in 1 or 2 areas, which was fantastic. And then nothing really happened in any of the other areas. And so I was like, you know, what's going on? Did I do something wrong? What should I be doing now? And, you know, all these things were going around in my head. I was forming a lot of conclusions of problems and mistakes and inadequacies. And needless to say that by the time 6 to 8 weeks went by, pretty much 85% of everything had sprouted, and I had lots of little seedlings around to separate and put into my garden. And so, you know, be patient. Don't listen to the negative thoughts just because it's not happening. My arugula isn't growing as quickly as my tomatoes. You know, it doesn't mean that there's a problem. And so be patient with yourself in the situation. What I tell you was that each tray contains 75 balls of soil. And then when you plant, you kind of put 2 to 4 seeds in a ball. And to my surprise, I got more than 1 seedling growing from each ball. And so I had masses of stuff once it finally decided to come out. And so not only did I have, so I then had to figure out what I was going to do with all these plants. And the fact that I actually had so many in the end turned out to be a benefit, because inevitably when you're transplanting, you damage and break stuff. The cat uses your gardening and digs up all the, or your gardening bed as a bathroom and kicks out all of your plants in an area. There's too much sun, or you forget to water. And so having some redundancy and extra built into what you're doing is always beneficial, because it allows you to have some flexibility you wouldn't otherwise have. And then the 5th lesson is to continue to learn, adjust, and adapt to situations. And really that was the rest of, once I kind of got over the strain of growing my plants and getting them to the bed, I kind of realized, well, Mother Nature's got this pretty much. I can't do too much that's wrong. But I was still learning. I learned about different mulches and using live grass clippings as opposed to the pre-made ones, and natural as a source of natural organic fertilizer, and how to weed and prune your vegetables to train them to the maximize fruit production. So there's a lot that I learned. Again, as I learned that I actually put too many things in one area, because when you plant them, they're this big, and they say put them a foot apart, and I'm like, oh, come on, they only a foot. They actually did, and so you get some overlapping, and so, you know, you adjust, you adapt, and you continue to learn. And really it's an extremely rewarding mental state to be in. And I can't believe how much I actually enjoyed my gardening. So next I'll talk about how I applied my vegetable lessons, which I had initially in there and fondly referred to as my VLs, but my daughter said I couldn't put those in there. It wasn't funny, but I think it is. So my VLs, the first lesson, which distinguishes a time to sow and a time to harvest. 2020 is a time to sow. If you're focused on how we routinely are in, it's about product, end outcome, structure, planning, you will go a little bit crazy. And so I decided to relish the fact that this was sowing time. This was the time to develop ideas and to explore and nurture them. And so I took the opportunity to create new ventures, collaborations, and to network. And so what I did is I've always performed outreach programs to help animals and communities that don't otherwise have access to veterinary medicine. Their animals wouldn't be getting spayed or neutered or vaccinated. And I do this for free. I try to get funding to help support that. And I'm working with a team now, a local team, to transfer this type of program into the Native American reservations, because they're of a low economic status. They don't have money nor veterinary hospitals to care for their animals, and they're getting a big stray and animal overpopulation. And so this was the dream. This was the curiosity. You know, these programs are going well. How can I get them into the States and into the Native American reservations? And so I just started dreaming, exploring, talking to people, all of these types of connection. I've learned so much about nonprofits who are also as impassioned as I am to help on the reservations, how they collaborate and make connections, to educate and bring resources in. And so I really have spent a lot of time speaking to people, introducing myself to people. It's amazing the number of people I've cold called, and really I have never gotten the phone slammed in my face. Most people are pretty willing to collaborate, offer to help, send you a name. So it really has been a great, very rewarding to be curious and exploring things, because it's been paying off. Also, I've been looking into different grants to help fund that, and we've been getting some traction there as well. However, the third lesson, again, is a hard one, coming from New York. Be patient. You know, just like with the seedlings, nothing's going to happen overnight. Nothing's going to be solid and firmed up in a day or two. So really making the connections, allowing the time, not allowing the thoughts and the negativity to bring you down or to make you question what's honor the process, again, to take advantage of networking to move things forward. And building in redundancy is really important, I think, when you're starting a new venture, because you don't know who you're going to get along with or be able to partner with or have the same ideals with. So as I mentioned, I've met so many nonprofits, university, et cetera, and you know, there'll come a point where, God willing, I'll be in the position to maybe choose one or two that match the best, which is the benefit of redundancy. It gives you choices, and every time you are able to connect with somebody, and even if it doesn't work, you learn something, you get information, and you can implement it. So really, this whole process, whether it's gardening or developing these programs that I'm doing now, it's really been a continuation of learning. I think life is an ongoing learning opportunity. I think it stops being interesting when you stop learning. However, you sometimes have to adapt. You have to be flexible. You have to be willing to try to look at it from a different point of view or give it a shot. Or else you'll just never know. And as they say, life is a journey, not a destination. So, you know, kind of relish each day, you know, the conversation, what you learned, what you got out, how you grew. I think that makes things a little more attainable given our situation. So applying the lessons from the garden in your life, I think can be summarized, fairly concisely. Really, it's the first few points that are most important. If you have time now, I actually wasn't looking at the clock, so I'm not sure where I'm at. But I think this is the biggest one. This is a time to sow. What that means is to follow a passion, to follow a dream, something that you've been putting off, do something new, do something different. It doesn't have to be professionally. It doesn't have to be, or it could be either personally or professionally, I'd say. And, just be curious, how interested am I in there? And what if this happened? And what's going on in these circumstances, or in this occupation, or in this location? And really, you can use these 5 simple steps to follow as you explore the sowing of your own personal garden, whether it be a hobby, a career, a friendship, any of the above. And I just threw in at the end a little before and after picture of the small space that I have for my garden, from my little seedlings to the tomato plants that are as tall as I, or taller than I am, and my 1 million cucumbers, which if anyone needs cucumbers, I'm happy to give them away. But thank you very much. I would happy to answer questions. I'd be happy to speak with you, and thank you for listening.
Thanks so much, Kim. My daughter and I started gardening during this time, and it's been an interesting experience, but I didn't think of all of these different lessons. I mean, this is just a really amazing way to take lessons from even the very simplest things. When you mentioned redundancy, the first thing that came to my mind is redundancy in income and multiple streams of income. So this is great. Thank you very, very much. Lots of great information there.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Great.
So our next speaker this evening is Kathleen. Kathleen is currently the Executive Director of SPARK, the Special Program and Resource Connection. SPARK enhances the lives of people with developmental disabilities through high-quality therapeutic recreation activities. As a highly experienced and knowledgeable nonprofit senior executive leader, Kathleen is skilled in organizational administration, including the managing of employees, policies, procedures, and managing a multi-million-dollar budget. Tonight, she's going to talk to us about leading during challenging times. Kathleen?
Thank you, Cheryl, for having me. It's a pleasure, and I welcome everybody. And yeah, so when Cheryl was talking about doing a series, and when she mentioned the topic, really not what happened to our vision board, I thought it would be appropriate for us to talk about situational leadership, and maybe give a little bit, do a little bit of a training in regards to what situational leadership is. And also how I applied it throughout this time, leading through tough times and times of change. So during my presentation, I'm going to talk about we're going to talk about the vision board, a little bit about what that vision board was and what the plan was for me, and how I worked through that. And second topic would be about now what happened after COVID happened. What are we going to do? And then I'm going to introduce the situational leadership model and theory, because that's something that I utilized throughout this process, and I thought that was really helpful for me. So I thought it would be really good for me to also share that with you. And then how do you lead? How do you lead throughout the change? Throughout this different time. So vision board. So typically people have, you know, it's been said that vision board work, that you have dreams and aspirations, and at the beginning of 2020, you start planning what your vision is going to be throughout the year. And actually, this was my first year actually doing a vision board for myself personally, in a personal level. I've always done planning and preparing my year in terms of work, my work goals, but I never did something when it came to personal goals. So this was actually my first year doing that. And there was different things on my vision board, but obviously not most of it hasn't been accomplished yet. And in terms of work goals, there were different goals that I had for myself. First of all, I was a new executive director last year. I started at Spark in the end of May. So the beginning of 2020, I had a lot of goals for the organization as myself and as also as a team, and where we wanted the organization to go. One of it was really adding more programs to the organization, adding more services. So at Spark, we provide services to individuals with disabilities, as Cheryl was saying. And my goal for 2020 was really to expand the services we already have. We were really excited, and one of them was actually going to be a new opening in New Rochelle. And unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of things had to stop. So the main mission and goal of my organization is to serve individuals with disabilities, but in a group. So a lot of our services are recreational, therapeutic. And so unfortunately, we had to stop all of our services. So that was really scary, because stopping all services means we have no funding, there's no income. So that was a really scary times. So in the gut, it's like, what now? What now? What's going to happen? What is there is sort of an unknown. There is fear. What are we going to do now? So one of the things really, even through the scary moments, you have to really step back and you have to really start analyzing what is happening, but also got to take a look at what are your resources. And this is something that actually Kimberly talked about, you know, reaching out, networking. What are your resources that you have within you, within your organization, within your community? So calling people, networking, trying to figure out how are things going to get better? How could things work out? So that's always really important, that you look at your resources and what do you have. And the same thing is, you got to give yourself time, because when you're all in the chaos of things that are changing very rapidly, you have to give yourself time to think. So it's really important for you to stay focused and attuned to the time, to your time in terms of what you need to do and plan out. So my biggest thing was, I can't really do it alone. So like I said, resources are really important, but I really had to reach out to my staff, really talk to my team leaders and members, and we all kind of assembled and had to discuss how this is all going to work out. So this is one of the reasons why I introduced situational leadership. It's a theory and model, but it's something that I've used throughout my career. There's different types of leadership styles, but this is what I really implemented at that moment, because situational leadership, it's leading in terms of different situations. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what this is, teach you a little bit about different styles. So situational leadership theory and model was created in different stages by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard in 1969. And they started off with the first model, and then they actually ended up then changing it a little bit. So there's one phase, and then there's a second phase. This situational leadership is really used by many leaders around the world. The main premise states that the best leadership style will vary upon the situation at hand. Effective leadership is really achieved when you match appropriate leadership style to the employee's need for guidance and support to achieve a specific goal or task. So what it means is, depending on where the person is, the person you're supervising, their development, then you match them up to the leadership style that you're going to use, and you're going to guide them and support them. You focus on the person's ability depending on the task. And also you have to look to see whether that person is motivated to perform the task. So here I'm presenting to you the actual model. This model was done by both Hersey and Blanchard. And basically this model gives you an idea or a perspective about the different styles and when should you use the different styles. So for example, I'm gonna explain a little bit about the model here. But for example, someone who is new, coming into a company who's brand new, you're going to be more of using a directing type of style to teach that person new policies, new procedures. So that would be a directing type of leadership. So there's different leadership styles here presented. So first I'm going to talk about the x-axis. Okay, so the x-axis here on this model, you see it says directive behavior. That's that's the level of directive behavior you're going to use. And so this x-axis at the bottom will say low to high. So depending where the person's development level is, their competency, their commitment to the organization or to the work, this is the type of behavior you will use. And that's the level, the x-axis. And then the y-axis is the supportive behavior. How supportive are you going to be? How the intensity that you're going to be hands-on with that individual, that staff member. So that the y-axis also grades from low to high. And as you see in this model, there is different leadership styles: delegating, supporting, coaching, directing. So there's 4 different styles here. And on the right, you will see development levels. The development levels identifies where the person is at in terms of their competency and their commitment. So you have your self-reliant achievers, you have someone who's capable but a cautious performer, you have a disillusioned learner, and you have the enthusiastic beginner. So like I said before, someone who is new at an organization, who's brand new and needs more support, you're going to be more of a directive leadership or leader. And that's the enthusiastic beginner. You see the color is like that hot pink. So you'll have a high level of directive and low level of supportive. So I'm going to come back to this in a minute. So as I said before, the x-axis, the degree of directive behavior that you will exert, that's the amount of direction that you're going to provide to your team members, your subordinate. The y-axis is the degree of supportive behavior, the amount of support that you will give your team. And so just to give you a little bit more about the leadership styles are delegating. Delegating is a leader who provides minimal guidance and direction. Supportive is a leader who participates in decision-making, but most of the decision is made by the team. Coaching, the style is leaders are more receptive to input from their subordinates. And directive, it's an autocratic leader. So someone who's giving orders and the leader is making all the decisions. So there's no delegating in this piece, there's no being supportive, it's mostly the person is just, that leader is making all of the decisions in the situation. Okay, so I'm just going to go back quickly to the model. Okay, so if you have someone in your organization who is really knows the policies and procedures of your organization, knows their job really well, is very motivated, they're going to be your self-reliant achiever, right? So they're the one in the blue circle. And so the type of leadership style that you're going to use with that person will be mostly delegating. You can give that person responsibilities, and they're going to go off and they're going to do what they need to do as the person or a team member. And a little bit more about the coaching style. The coaching style of leadership is someone who is supportive and directive at the same time. They're both high. So usually coaching style, and the name is coaching, is they use this with in sports. Coaches, when they're coaching their team, because that you're giving a command, but also you're being supportive, and you're using what that individual's talents are to then teach them that they can do the work. So in terms of the person's development levels, it all depends on the leadership style you will use. And I used this example already when describing directing style of management. You provide more direction, and you're authoritarian. So the reason I'm talking to you about this is because this is what I applied when we were going through all the changes throughout the organization. Because as many of you know, sometimes people are not at the same level. And it's really hard when you're going through changes, because there's a lot of unknown. And people don't, at that point, your team members don't know what they're going to do. So at that point, you have to really apply and make sure you understand your employees. So staying focused on your goal, it's really important, and that you communicate the importance of your goal. You also have to know the strengths and weaknesses of your team members and your staff. What is really their passion? So it's important for you before this is to know what the strengths and weaknesses are of your employees. What is their passion? Do they really enjoy what they're working? So in order for you to apply certain directives or certain leadership styles, you really should know your employees. That's number one. And then in times of change, you have to be flexible. You need to be really flexible. You expect flexibility, but you must be flexible as well. And really to think outside the box. So I remember when we had to really close all of our programs, we had no idea what we were going to do. It was a really scary moment, as I said before. So the first thing we had to do, I did was I assembled all my team members. We met, we discussed and the thing is, the most important thing we did was really thinking outside the box. What should we do? So what we came up with is virtual programming. We had to transfer all of our in-person programs to virtual programs. And yes, it's a great idea, but a lot of my team members, some of them didn't even work remotely. So all of their work and performance were done at the office. So for them, it was really hard to even have the concept of working from home, first of all. The other thing is having a virtual training or even a presentation. So when I said to them, this is something that you're gonna have to do, it was really tough, because for them, this was something completely new. And some of them didn't even have the tech savviness of working from remotely. So there was a lot of new things, a lot of changes, but from working together as a team and being open-minded and flexible, we were able to succeed and be able to start our virtual programming within our organization. So I remember one of the things is one of my employees, she, like I said, she wasn't really tech savvy. She was afraid, but she did have creativity. So she was the one who mostly came up with the programs and what programs that need to be done for our individuals that we serve in the community. So I used her creativity and then used someone else's tech savviness and had them work together as a team. So that way they can learn from each other. So like I said, I thought this was an important thing to talk about today, because situational leadership is the way to go sometimes when you're working as a team and there's a lot of changes going on. So situational leadership, I used it in terms of directing others, but sometimes people needed more direction than others, and some people needed more support. And this worked for me. Staff were they were really motivated and they were ready to be creative. And of course, I said before, there's some of them who were really afraid, but they were willing to learn. And leading, as well as, it's really important also to be honest and frank with your team members. As we were going along and creating all these programs, obviously there were times when we met through Zoom and we had no idea what was going on, whether or not their family members were being affected by COVID, where were they at in terms of emotionally. There was so much going on. It was really important for me as a leader to be able to be honest with them, frank with them, but as well as providing them with a sense of outlet, especially during these difficult times. So there were times where we would meet one-on-one, but also meet as a team and discuss about what were the problems, their issues, and letting it out, because that was in a space, or a safe space for them to talk about different things. And because of this and all the stuff that we did, we accomplished a goal of starting off these new programs that we've never done before. But it was really successful. Our community participants and also our family members were really appreciative that we started this, because it was a way of an outlet of our participants to really stay connected to others. And at the same time, this virtual program and this new format also helped my employees, because they were kind of also stuck at home, not being able to do stuff. And it was a way of also them, also sort of some kind of therapy to help them through the process as well. So this is also through, as a leader, you have to really exert confidence, and it's important for you to communicate specifically to your subordinates and let them know where you're at, what's your plan, and what's the goal. And this is a way to accomplish where you're going. So hopefully, at the end of 2020, we can maybe start our 2021 vision board to continue on, because even though maybe this year it didn't go well, our vision board for work and personal life can maybe be accomplished in 2021. And anyone have any questions? I really thank you for this opportunity. I know I talked a little bit about about situational leadership, so anyone has any questions at this point?
And feel free to send your questions afterwards too. You can put them in the chat, you can email them to us, you can post it on social media, and any one of our speakers would be happy to get in touch with you and answer your questions. Thank you so much, Kathleen. I think that it's really important to talk about these things, and I especially like the point about stepping back and analyzing, and you're looking at like your vision board or your plans or your goals or whatever it is that you've put together that you want to accomplish, and step back, analyze, reassess. Maybe you can achieve the same exact goals that you already had in mind, but it's in a different way, or maybe you need to change them. Maybe there's something better you can do or something different you can do. So I think it's really, really good information, and thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Joel Salomon. Joel Salomon is a prosperity coach who helps others overcome obstacles standing in the way of their financial freedom. He's the author of 2 best-selling books, The 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use, Only the Unconventional Ones, and Mindful Money Management, Memoirs of a Hedge Fund Manager. Joel is an award-winning speaker and frequent podcast guest. He's been a chartered financial analyst since 1995. In 1992, he was named a Fellow of the Society of Actuaries, and he's also an advanced communicator, gold Toastmaster, and a certified infinite possibilities trainer and trailblazer. Joel?
Thanks, Cheryl. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I guess if somebody's not speaking, they can put themselves on mute so I don't get some background. So, and now for something completely different. Those of you who know Monty Python from the 1970s may remember that comedy skit. So first of all, I'm going to tell a story. I was on the roof of the Balsan Hotel in Bangkok, Thailand. It was August 2nd, 2019. And I was full of chills as I took a picture of the Grand Palace from the rooftop of this hotel. What had happened? Well, just a couple of years earlier, I had put together a vision board with all the places that I wanted to go in the world. And I recommend anybody who's listening right now or is going to listen to the future to get a piece of paper, get a pen. So we're going to be doing some exercises. The first is a comment that I'd recommend not putting a deadline on your dreams and desires. So if you're putting together a vision board or you have, don't put a deadline on it. You have no idea what the universe has in store for you or how. So I had put on my vision board, amongst other things, 3 pictures of Bangkok, the Grand Palace, the Temple of Dawn, and the Temple of Buddha. And in 2019, I got a call from a buddy of mine who asked me if I was interested in doing a long-term project for this company in Connecticut. And I got the opportunity. And a few months later, the guy who's managing the project says to me, Joel, you've been working with a lot of people in Manila. I'd like you to get there in the end of July. I'm jogging the next morning and I said, oh my God, how far is Bangkok from Manila? I got a hold for my jog, checked the flights, and it's literally 2.5 hours away. And so on August 2nd, 2019, I'm on the rooftop. And as I take the picture of the Grand Palace, I realize that this was the exact same view that was on my vision board for the last 2 years. It must have been the photographer taking that picture, must have been on the exact same rooftop, taking the picture of the Grand Palace from that view. So, vision boards are powerful and visualizing is powerful. And I want to talk to you guys about visualizing today because no matter what's going on, and you may have had some things on your vision board for this year, but again, I recommend not putting a deadline on things. Maybe those travel plans may not happen in 2020, but what if they happen on January 2nd, 2021? Wouldn't you be ecstatic anyway? What if that $10 million came in 2022 instead of 2020? Wouldn't you be ecstatic anyway? So let's start with the process of visualizing. First step, and there are 6 steps to visualizing your dreams and desires. The first step is to pick a place. Decide where you're going to do it. I'd recommend not doing it in your bed right after you wake up in the morning. Maybe it's the living room, maybe it's the dining room, but get comfortable and decide. So first of all, number 1 is where. Second decision you have to make is what time. You're going to do it right after you get up. Again, don't do it in your bed right after you get up. You may fall right back to sleep. Pick a time and pick a place. So those are the first two steps. The third step is to pick the amount of time you're going to visualize. 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I don't recommend more than 10 minutes because when you're visualizing or thinking about what's on your dream board, you don't want to be stopping the rest of your taking action. So don't do it for hours. You got to get out there and take action as well. So step 3 is decide how much, 3, 5, 10 minutes. Now, the next step is really important. So you have to write down 3 dreams and desires, at least 3. Now, you can put them on a vision board or you could just write them down. So I'm going to encourage you guys to right now take a minute if you're watching live and write down 3 dreams and desires. They don't have to be achieved in 2020, maybe not even in 2021, but write down 3 dreams and desires. It could be your dream car, your dream house, a dream vacation. Maybe it's a certain amount of money. Maybe it's spending more time with the ones you love. Maybe it's developing your dream relationship. So think about it and write down at least 3 dreams and desires. For me, obviously, a couple of years ago, it was Bangkok and a lot of travel places, which have come to pass or will be coming to pass. So now, one of the most important parts, step 5 in the vision boarding or visualizing process, is to feel the feeling. So Wayne Dyer said, make your future dream a present reality by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let me say that again. Make your future dream a present reality by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So if you're vision boarding or visualizing and you're feeling angst or scared or fearful, that's not the feeling you want. You want to vibrate at the same level that you would if you achieve your dream. So imagine you are standing on that rooftop in Bangkok, taking a look at the Grand Palace. How ecstatic would you be? How happy would you be? You achieved something on your vision board. Maybe you're in that dream relationship and you're in that loving, caring relationship. You're supporting them, they're supporting you. How great would you feel? So when you can vibrate at that same emotional level of passion and happiness and joy, maybe it's gratitude or appreciation for what has come to pass before it's actually happened, that's when it's going to come really quick. And the last step is to see if you could actually picture yourself in the visualization. You're looking down, maybe you have this dream to do a coaching session on the island of Maldives. The other key part of visualizing is to picture the whole scene. You get to think about it, right? When you're vision boarding, you get to put on all the scenes, all the places, all the types of relationship that you want. So go into detail when you visualize. What are you wearing? Is the sun shining? What time of day is it? Is it sunset, sunrise? How do you feel? Who else is there with you? Are you inside? Are you outside? You know, I picture myself doing a vision boarding seminar on the island of Maldives, and I see myself in the bathing suit with the Hawaiian shirt, with 100 people sitting on folding chairs, overlooking the ocean, the turquoise waters, the sandy beaches. You can get into a lot of detail when you're visualizing your dreams and desires. So maybe for 1 or 2 or 3 of those dreams, maybe you could think about the feeling that that will produce in you when you achieve it, and write that down. And why not make a list of things of feelings that you will have when you actually achieve some of these dreams and desires. So write down some feelings. What activities actually bring me the feeling of joy? What activities bring me the feeling of ecstasy or passion or appreciation? And if you can feel that feeling now before it's actually happened, that's when those actions, those events, those relationships come into your life very quickly. Now, I heard Kim, I heard Kathleen, a lot of things have happened over the last few months that may have gotten you to maybe change the way you feel about yourself, about the world. But I recommend that, or I'd like to share with you that there are going to be some trends going on in the future. And I wrote a white paper. I've done a lot of work over the last few months, a lot of introspection like a lot of you have, on what are going to be the mega trends happening in the future that are going to affect our lives. And Kim and Kathleen touched on some of them already, but I wrote a paper called The 5 Mega Trends Guaranteed to Shape Your Future. And SHAPE is an acronym. And S stands for societal trends. So there may be some new trends coming out. How are people going to interact with each other when they see each other? Are people going to still be hugging and handshaking, or are other things going to happen? So I talked about societal trends. H stands for health. My belief is there's going to be a significant focus on health going forward, and I go into that in the white paper. A stands for appreciation, and that may seem really strange now, but if you can think about the things in your life that you could appreciate right now, even while all this unprecedented things are going on in the world, again, when you think about what you appreciate, more and more things come into your life that you could be appreciative of. And then P stands for purpose. I've already had somebody come to me a couple of months ago and sent me an email, and the subject line was Eureka. And the email was, I finally figured out my true life purpose. I need your help. And E stands for energy. And I truly believe that people are going to connect more with and feel more other people's energy, their own energy, and energy will be an important part of relationships going forward. So I'd love to share that white paper with anybody who wants it. If you text to 66866 right now, the 9 money rules, as Cheryl mentioned, that's the name of my book. So the number 9 money rules, all one word, you'll get that white paper. So thanks for watching and listening, and I'll open it up to any questions. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Joel? All right, just like we said the last time, if anybody comes
I do
up-
quickly.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I know you made a point of saying not to put a deadline on the outcome or for the event to take place, but do you find that are there many visions that have not come to fruition yet, or do most of yours at some point in the nearest future come?
That's a great question, Kim. So yeah, I guess for me, and I tell people whatever resonates with what I say, take it, whatever doesn't, throw it out. And for me, I found, and I talked about this in my book, that if I put a deadline on things and I'm getting close to it and things haven't occurred, I start stressing, I start white knuckling it, as opposed to just allowing. And that's what stops things from coming. I believe resistance, you create your own resistance rather than just allowing things to occur. So I talk about this, I have a number of pages in my book about enjoying the journey, as you talked about. and allowing things to come. So yeah, I actually have had 3 or 4 vision boards over the last number of years, and the first one, almost everything has occurred. The travel one, given this year, things are still in process. But again, I have what I didn't really talk about is expectation. And expectation is when you have a very high level of belief and you have a high desire. So if your belief level from 1 to 10 is 10, you really strongly believe it's going to happen, and your desire level on a 1 to 10 is also a 10, that's expectation. It's going to happen. So that's how I feel about things that I have on my vision board, or when I visualize, I expect it to happen. And if it happens tomorrow, great. Or if it happens 2021 or 2024, I'd be ecstatic anyway.
Awesome. Very nice. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Anyone else? Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Anytime. I love that idea of not necessarily having a goal on it. And sometimes when somebody said something, it resonates in a way that it makes you think about something that you never actually thought of before. And when you were talking about that, about not putting a goal on it, part of me was thinking, why did we even put a goal on some of these things anyway? I mean, does it really matter, like you said, if it happens on December 31st of 2020 or if it happens on January 3rd? It really actually doesn't. It's just that we want it to happen. So I think that was really valuable advice.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, it just eliminates the stress. And I mean, this may be provocative, but time is a construct that humans created. Calendar years, you know, it's a construct, and I think we can learn that it's fluid. And you know, like I talked about, you know, and in other times I've talked about how I manifest large amounts of money, and I put the check up on the ceiling and I didn't put a deadline on it. And if I had, I truly believe it wouldn't have happened.
No, I think that's great advice. That is one of those things that we often just don't even think about. You think about, you put down a goal, you want to put a deadline down, and just, you don't even think about why are you even putting a deadline down. So that's great in opening up people's minds to thinking about new ways of having their visions. And when you think about it that way, then 2020 kind of doesn't matter.
Right. Everything with grace and ease, my view. Grace and ease.
Thank you so much, Joel. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. We hope you have found the speakers and the information helpful, and we look forward to connecting with you again in the future. Stay safe and successful, everyone. Have a great night. Bye.
Bye.